Case File 724B. The subject, Dr. Samuel Adebayo, a senior counsel with the United States Department of Justice, was unlawfully detained and physically assaulted by Officer Rick Jennings of the Willow Creek Police Department. The officer cited suspicious behavior and resisting arrest after Dr. Adebayo, while stretching after a morning run, failed to immediately comply with unlawful orders. What followed was a confrontation that would not only end a career, but would also trigger a federal investigation into the entire department, all captured on a trembling cell phone and the officer's own body camera. The timestamp on the footage reads 7:14 a.m. The sun is a pale, watery yellow, filtering through the dense canopy of oak trees that line Elm Street, one of the most affluent avenues in Willow Creek. The air is cool, smelling of damp earth and cut grass from the manicured lawns. Dr. Samuel Adebayo breathes it in, a controlled rhythm of inhale and exhale. His gray tracksuit is dark with sweat from his 5-mile run, a daily ritual he has maintained for 20 years. He presses the sole of his running shoe against the low, ivy-covered stone wall bordering the local park, stretching his calf muscle. The burn is clean, satisfying. He is a man of discipline, in his body as in his work. He is lost in the quiet mechanics of his cooldown when the slow crunch of tires on asphalt pulls him back. A police cruiser, white and blue, glides to a stop alongside him. It doesn't pull over so much as it simply halts in the middle of the quiet street, an instant assertion of dominance. The window hums down. Behind the wheel sits a man whose face is a fleshy mask of sour discontent. Officer Rick Jennings. He leans his head out, his eyes sweeping over Samuel's dark skin, his simple athletic wear, and the expensive, historic homes behind him. The equation computes instantly in his mind. Black man plus wealthy neighborhood equals problem. You. Jennings barks, the word a small explosion in the morning tranquility. What are you doing here? Samuel finishes his stretch, placing his foot back on the ground with deliberate slowness. He turns to face the officer, his expression neutral. He has had this conversation, or a version of it, more times than he can count. He learned long ago that reacting with anger was a tactical error. Calmness was a shield. Good morning, officer. I'm just finishing my run. Jennings's eyes narrow. The polite, articulated response seems to annoy him more than defiance would have. He kills the engine, and the sudden silence is heavy. The car door groans open. Jennings heaves himself out, his duty belt creaking under the strain of his paunch. His hand rests instinctively on the butt of his sidearm. It's not a threat, not yet, but a reminder of the power dynamic he believes is in play. Finishing your run, Jennings repeats, his tone dripping with disbelief. He walks around the front of his cruiser, his boots scuffing the pavement. He stops a few feet from Samuel, invading his personal space. This is a residential area. People live here. Yes, I know, Samuel replies, his voice even. I'm one of them. My house is 2 blocks down. He gestures vaguely with his chin, unwilling to give this man his exact address. Jennings lets out a short, derisive huff of air. Right. You live here. And I suppose that mansion back there is yours, too? He points to a grand colonial-style house with a sprawling lawn. Samuel doesn't answer the sarcastic question. He simply stands there, waiting. His stillness is a stark contrast to the officer's restless energy, his constant shifting and hand gestures. I'm going to need to see some ID, Jennings demands, his voice hardening. There have been reports. Break-ins. People like you. Casing the neighborhood, the phrase hangs in the air. People like you. Samuel feels the familiar, dull ache of it, the wearying weight of a lifetime of such assumptions. He maintains his composure. Officer, I'm not operating a motor vehicle, and I am not currently suspected of a specific, articulable crime. Therefore, I'm not legally required to provide identification. He states it as a fact, not an argument. His tone is educational, almost gentle, but the legal precision is unmistakable. This, for Jennings, is like gasoline on a fire. His face flushes a blotchy red. Oh, a street lawyer are we? You think you can come into my town and tell me the law? He takes another step forward, his chest puffed out. I'm the law here, boy. And when I tell you to do something, you do it. Now give me your ID before this gets a lot more complicated for you. Across the street, a young woman with a purple backpack, waiting for the 7:30 a.m. bus to the community college, looks up from her phone. She sees the officer jabbing his finger at the black man in the tracksuit. Her brow furrows. Something feels wrong. She instinctively shifts her grip on her phone, her thumb hovering over the camera icon. Samuel holds Jennings's gaze. He could end this, right now. He could reach into his pocket, produce the thin leather wallet, and watch this officer's entire world crumble. But that isn't the point. The point is the principal. The point is the man who comes after him, the one who doesn't have a DOJ credential in his pocket. What happens to him? Officer, Samuel says, his voice still unnervingly calm. You are conducting an unlawful stop. You have no reasonable suspicion. Your pretext of break-ins is vague and unsubstantiated. I am a resident of this community, engaged in a lawful activity. I have identified myself as such. If you wish to detain me, you need to articulate the specific crime you suspect me of committing. Every word is a carefully placed stone, building a wall of legal fact that Jennings seems determined to smash his head against. The officer's smirk is gone, replaced by a tight-lipped scowl. He sees Samuel's composure not as the mark of a disciplined professional, but as the insolence of a criminal who thinks he's clever. Suspicious activity, that's what I suspect you of, Jennings grunts, his voice rising in volume. Loitering, prowling, planning a burglary. Take your pick. Now I'm telling you for the last time. ID. Now, an elderly couple, the Hendersons, turn the corner, their golden retriever trotting ahead of them. They slow down, their morning chatter dying on their lips as they see the confrontation. Mr. Henderson puts a restraining hand on his wife's arm. They stop, pretending to let their dog sniff a patch of grass, their attention locked on the scene. They are silent witnesses, their presence adding to the pressure cooker atmosphere. Jennings feels their eyes on him. He feels the eyes of the girl at the bus stop. It's a performance now. He has to assert his authority, to win. That's it. He snaps, his patience utterly gone. You're refusing to comply. Turn around. Put your hands on the wall. You're under arrest. Samuel stands his ground. Arrest for what, officer? For what crime? For resisting me. Jennings roars, spittle flying from his lips. For obstruction. Now turn around. The body cam footage would later show Samuel begin a slow, deliberate turn, a movement of resigned compliance. He is not resisting. He is moving with the care of a man who knows any sudden action will be misinterpreted as a threat. But for Jennings, it is not fast enough. It is not submissive enough. With a guttural cry of rage, Jennings lunges forward. He shoves Samuel with both hands, a violent, explosive push that sends him stumbling the final foot toward the retaining wall. Samuel's head connects with the rough-hewn stone with a sickening, hollow thud. The sound is shockingly loud in the quiet morning air. Pain, white-hot and blinding, erupts behind his eyes. The world tilts, the green of the ivy smearing into the gray of the stone. He slumps against the wall, his ears ringing, a wave of nausea washing over him. The woman at the bus stop lets out a small, sharp gasp. Her phone is up, recording. The red dot in the corner of her screen is a silent, damning witness. The Hendersons are frozen, their faces etched with horror. Their dog, sensing the tension, begins to whine. Jennings, breathing heavily, seems momentarily shocked by his own violence. But the adrenaline is pumping, and doubling down is the only path he knows. He grabs Samuel's arm, yanking it behind his back in a painful twist. I told you to comply, he shouts, his voice ragged. You brought this on yourself. Samuel doesn't cry out. He doesn't struggle. He lets his body go limp against the cold stone, gathering himself. The coppery taste of blood is in his mouth. A warm trickle runs from his temple down his cheek. He takes a deep, ragged breath, then another. He finds his center, the core of unshakable calm that has served him in courtrooms, in negotiations, in 100 moments just like this one. He turns his head slowly, the movement an act of immense will. He fixes his eyes on Jennings. They are not angry. They are not fearful. They are cold, clear, and filled with a terrifying certainty. Officer Jennings, Samuel says, his voice a low, resonant hum that cuts through the officer's adrenaline haze. Badge number 4812. You can read it from here. Jennings freezes, his hand still holding Samuel's arm. You have just committed battery. And because of my position, which you are about to learn, you have just committed a Class D felony under Title 18 of the U.S. Code. Jennings lets out a nervous, incredulous laugh. My God, you don't quit, do you? What are you, some kind of sovereign citizen nut job? He fumbles for his handcuffs, eager to silence this man, to complete the act of domination. You can stop this now, officer, Samuel continues, his voice unwavering. Or you can continue down this path and spend the next several years in a federal correctional institution. The choice is yours. I would advise you to choose wisely. Shut up. Jennings snarls, but there's a new tremor in his voice. The absolute confidence in the man's tone is starting to penetrate his thick skull. Just shut up and let me cuff you. Reach into the front left pocket of my tracksuit jacket, Samuel instructs, his voice as calm as if he were ordering coffee. Do it slowly and carefully. You will find my wallet. Inside it, you will find my federal credentials. A flicker of doubt crosses Jennings's face. It's a risk. Reaching into a suspect's pocket is against protocol. But the man's sheer, unblinking certainty is unnerving. Maybe it's a bluff. He has to call it. Fine, Jennings spits. Let's see your little library card. With a sneer, he releases Samuel's arm and roughly pats down the jacket pocket. He feels the shape of a wallet. He hooks his fingers inside and yanks it out. It's a simple, black leather billfold, worn at the edges. Nothing special. Jennings flips it open with a contemptuous flick of his thumb. And then he sees it. The body cam footage, which had been shaky, suddenly steadies as Jennings's entire body goes rigid. His breathing stops. There, under a clear plastic window, is not a driver's license. It is a government ID card, dark blue and official. At the top, in stark gold lettering, are the words, United States Department of Justice. Below that, an eagle, its wings spread wide, clutches arrows and an olive branch, the Great Seal of the United States. And below the seal, the name, Dr. Samuel A. Adebayo, and his title, Senior Counsel, Civil Rights Division. Jennings's eyes dart from the photograph on the ID, a picture of the same calm, intelligent face now staring at him with a bleeding temple, to the man himself. His mind refuses to process what he's seeing. It can't be real. This man, in a sweaty tracksuit, who he had just called boy and slammed against a wall, was a top federal lawyer. A lawyer from the one division every cop fears, civil rights. The blood drains from Jennings's face, leaving it a pasty, sickly white. The wallet trembles in his hand. This is a fake, he stammers, but the words have no force. They are a desperate prayer, not an accusation. He knows, with a gut-twisting certainty that floods his body with ice, that it is real. A fake. Samuel asks, his voice soft, but laced with iron. You think the Department of Justice issues fake credentials, officer? Or is it just that you cannot conceive of a man who looks like me holding a position like mine? Jennings looks up, his eyes wide with panic. He sees the woman at the bus stop, her phone held high and steady. He sees the Hendersons, their mouths agape. He is no longer the enforcer of the law on a quiet street. He is the villain in a video that is about to be seen by millions. The world has just flipped, violently and irrevocably. He is no longer the one in control. Look, Jennings pleads, his voice a pathetic whine. You were being suspicious. You wouldn't cooperate. I had to. I had to ensure officer safety. The rehearsed lines sound hollow, absurd in the face of the man bleeding against the wall. Samuel pushes himself upright, wincing as a sharp pain shoots through his head. He takes the wallet from Jennings's numb fingers and slips it back into his pocket. I was stretching, officer. I answered your questions. I asserted my constitutional rights, a concept you should be familiar with. You had no lawful basis for this stop, and you responded to my knowledge of the law with violence. You assaulted me. Your camera has recorded it all, as has that young lady. He nods his head toward the student, who lowers her phone slightly, her expression now one of fierce validation. Jennings opens and closes his mouth like a fish, but no sound comes out. The entire architecture of his authority, built on a foundation of prejudice and intimidation, has just collapsed into dust. All that's left is a terrified man in a uniform that suddenly feels 2 sizes too big. I suggest, Dr. Adebayo says, his voice devoid of all emotion, that you get on your radio and request the immediate presence of your watch commander and a paramedic unit. You will need to file a use of force report, and I will need a medical evaluation for the formal complaint I will be filing. That complaint will be the least of your concerns. Jennings stares at him, his face a mask of pure terror. He knows what this means. This isn't a civilian complaint that will get buried in internal affairs. This is the federal government. This is the Civil Rights Division. This is the end of his career. This is, quite possibly, the end of his freedom. With a hand that shakes so badly he can barely grip the radio, he presses the button. "Dispatch," he croaks, his voice cracking. "Dispatch, I need a supervisor at my location. Corner of Oak and Elm. And send an ambulance." Sergeant Peterson arrives 10 minutes later, his cruiser pulling up quietly behind Jennings's. Peterson is a 20-year veteran with tired eyes who has seen everything, but the scene that greets him makes his stomach clench. He sees Rick Jennings, one of his most problematic but tenaciously protected officers, standing pale and sweating beside his vehicle. He sees the Hendersons, respected community elders, talking in hushed, urgent tones to a young woman with a cell phone. And he sees a tall, composed black man with a blood-stained towel pressed to his temple, talking quietly with the newly arrived paramedics. Peterson gets out of his car, his mind already running through the worst-case scenarios. "Rick, what the hell happened?" he asks, keeping his voice low. Jennings just shakes his head, unable to speak. He looks utterly broken. Peterson sighs and approaches the man being treated. "Sir, I'm Sergeant Peterson. Can you tell me what occurred here?" Samuel turns from the paramedic. He looks at the sergeant, his gaze steady and appraising. "Sergeant Peterson," he says, his voice formal. He holds out his hand, not to shake, but to present the leather wallet, already open to the DOJ credential. "Dr. Samuel Adebayo, Senior Counsel, Department of Justice." Peterson takes the ID. He looks at it, then looks at the blood on Samuel's face, then looks over at the wreck of a man that is Rick Jennings. Unlike Jennings, Peterson understands the gravity of the situation instantly. He feels a cold dread snake its way up his spine. This is the call every supervisor fears. This isn't a lawsuit. This is a federal case. "Oh, Christ," he mutters under his breath. He hands the ID back with a reverent care that borders on fear. "Dr. Adebayo, I am so sorry. Whatever happened here, we will get to the bottom of it. I can save you the trouble, Sergeant," Samuel says coolly. "Your officer conducted an unlawful, racially motivated stop. When I lawfully questioned his basis for detention, he assaulted me. It's all on his body camera, and on at least one civilian recording. Your officer has committed a felony." Peterson's face hardens. He turns and glares at Jennings. The protective instinct is gone, replaced by the cold calculation of damage control. "Rick," he barks, his voice ringing with newfound authority. "In your car. Now, hand me your sidearm and radio. You are on administrative leave, effective immediately. Do not talk to anyone. Do not go anywhere. Is that clear?" Jennings, looking like a man just sentenced to death, nods numbly. He unclips his weapon and radio and hands them to his sergeant, his movements clumsy and robotic. He shuffles to his patrol car and sits in the passenger seat, staring blankly through the windshield. The power dynamic on the quiet street has been completely and brutally inverted. Samuel finishes with the paramedics, declining a trip to the hospital in favor of seeing his own doctor. He has a slight concussion, they say, and will need a few stitches. As they pack up, he pulls out his own phone. He dials a number from memory. He walks a few paces away, his back to the scene. The witnesses, the sergeant, the disgraced officer, they all watch him. His voice is low, but in the quiet morning, snippets of the conversation carry. "Yes, it's me. I'm fine. An incident in Willow Creek. Officer Rick Jennings, badge 4812. Yes, physical assault. I need you to open a file. Deprivation of rights under color of law. An assault on a federal officer. Notify the Bureau. I want a team here this afternoon. We're going to open a pattern or practice investigation into the entire Willow Creek PD." Effective immediately, Sergeant Peterson hears the words pattern or practice and feels his blood run cold. That isn't just about one bad cop. That's the federal government taking over his department, scrutinizing every report, every arrest, every complaint for years. It's a death sentence for a small suburban police force. Dr. Adebayo hangs up. He turns back to the sergeant, his face an impassive mask. "Sergeant, I will be in touch with your chief of police and the city attorney within the hour. For now, I'm going to walk home." He gestures down the street. "I trust one won't be detained again." Peterson shakes his head, mortified. "No, sir. Of course not, sir." "We can give you a ride. I'd prefer to walk," Samuel says, cutting him off. "I need to clear my head." He gives a slight nod to the young woman who had recorded everything. "Thank you," he says to her, a world of meaning in the two words. She nods back, a look of awe on her face. Then, without a backward glance at the chaos he is leaving in his wake, Dr. Samuel Adebayo turns and continues his walk home, his posture perfect, his stride measured, a man who had just reminded the world that justice, sometimes, has a face and a name. The aftermath was swift and merciless. The student's video, uploaded with the title "Racist Cop Assaults DOJ Lawyer," had 1 million views before noon. It was picked up by national news outlets. The shaky footage of Jennings's snarling face contrasted with Samuel's impossible calm, becoming an instant symbol of systemic rot. Officer Rick Jennings was fired before the end of the day. The Willow Creek Police Department, in a desperate act of self-preservation, threw him to the wolves. But it wasn't enough. A federal grand jury indicted Jennings 2 weeks later on 2 counts: assault on a federal officer and, more damningly, deprivation of rights under color of law. He was denied bail. His union refused to represent him. His colleagues, the ones who had laughed at his jokes and covered for his complaints for years, suddenly couldn't remember his name. He was alone, facing a prosecutorial team from the very department he had mocked, a team personally overseen by Dr. Adebayo. The pattern or practice investigation descended on the Willow Creek PD like a storm. Federal agents swarmed their headquarters, seizing records, computers, and files. What they found was a cesspool of casual racism, buried complaints, and falsified reports, all fostered by a culture of impunity. Several other officers were fired or resigned. The chief of police was forced to step down. The department was placed under a federal consent decree, a long and humiliating process of court-ordered reform. 6 months later, Rick Jennings stood before a federal judge. He had lost weight, his uniform replaced by an ill-fitting suit. He wept as he pleaded guilty, his lawyer having told him it was his only chance to avoid the maximum sentence. The judge was unmoved. "You took an oath to uphold the law," she said, her voice like ice. "Instead, you became a law unto yourself. You judged a man not by his character, but by the color of his skin. The irony is that the man you chose to victimize was a guardian of the very civil rights you so casually violated. You did not just assault a man. You assaulted the rule of law itself." He was sentenced to 8 years in federal prison. As he was led away in handcuffs, the news cameras captured his broken, defeated face. In the back of the courtroom, Dr. Samuel Adebayo sat, watching. There was no triumph on his face, only a profound and weary sadness. He had won. Justice had been served. But he knew this was just one officer, one department. The fight was far from over. As he left the courthouse, reporters swarmed him. He ignored their questions, walking silently to his car. He had a 5-mile run to get in before his workday started. The sun was rising, and the world was waiting.